Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kayla and it's time to crack into a good book. So today's video is going to be another book haul. I know I literally just did one last week, but I've got a lot of new books to talk to you about. So last week was my used book haul, so this week is going to be my new book haul slash, giveaways that I've won or received for review. So I've got 30, I think, books to talk to you about today, which I know is a lot, but I currently have the Olympics on in the background so I can kind of see it. I've been obsessively watching it, but yeah, so leave some sort of sport emoji in the comments if those exist to let me know that you're here. So we'll begin with the books that I have received in giveaways or for review or just for free. So there are quite a few of them actually. And there are more on their way, but they just haven't gotten here yet and I just figured I needed to film it. But anyway, so in terms of the book that I got for free and just not in a giveaway, this is from the Penguin book rewards program. So that's going to be Steel Tide by Natalie C. Parker. So this is the sequel to Sci-Fi, which I read back in, I think, May, and actually enjoyed. I think I rated that 3.5 stars, but this is a YA fantasy that's kind of piratey, but I think not quite as piratey as I originally expected, at least with the first one, but yeah, I still had a good time with the first one and wanted to continue it. I had actually gotten that one for free also, so I'm like, I guess I'm just going to get this whole series for free. I don't know. Anyway, so the synopsis here. So this is the second book in this trilogy, and we follow the captain of this all-female kind of crew trying to take down a vicious warlord. So it's kind of like Mad Max, but ocean type vibes. Caledonia, who is our captain, is pulled from the sea and nursed back to health by a crew of former bullets who are the warlord's, army. And so these are former bullets who call themselves Spades, and they have escaped the warlord's clutches and now live a nomadic existence ready to disappear at a moment's notice should trouble come their way. But Caledonia just wants to do more than hide. She wants to find her ship and continue fighting the fleet and to take back, the seas. So she's going to have to do everything she can to convince these Blades that fighting is their only option and that there's a life better than, what they're currently living, and that finding her ship and her crew is the first step. So yeah, like I said, I had a good time with the first book and wanted to continue it, even if it's not an all-time favorite series. It's still pretty enjoyable. I think there were some interesting friendships, and I liked a lot of the female crew members, so I am just excited to continue this series. So then we'll move on to the one book out of this particular pile that I've received for review, and that's White Trash Warlock by David R. Slayton. So this is adult urban fantasy, and it's been one that I've been super excited about reading, so I'm glad that it has arrived so I can read it and review it. I think the second one comes out sometime this fall as well, so that would be really convenient timing. Adam, who has the sight, which is a power that runs in his bloodline, he can see beyond this world and into a realm of magic populated by elves, gnomes, and spirits, but this power has kind of been a curse, hindering friendships, worrying his family, and fueling his abusive father's rage. So years after his brother had him committed to a psych ward, he's ready to come to grips with who he is, live his life on his own terms, find love, and maybe even use his magic to do some good. So he's trying to find his missing father and follows a trail of cursed artifacts to Denver, only to discover that an ancient and horrifying spirit has taken possession of his brother's wife. That sounds really fun. I was contacted by the author, obviously asking if I wanted to review it, which I had already had my eye on it, so I was like, yes, that would be great. But he was saying, I think it has a similar vibe to the Harrow sequence by Katy Edwards, which I really love, and so I'm really hopeful that I will also love this book. I feel pretty optimistic about it. So now we'll get into the books that I won in giveaways, which there are quite a few. So I'm not entirely sure what some of the genres are. This one I believe is romance. This is Paradise Peak by Janet Dailey. Have never read anything by this author before, but our main guy, Travis, is an ex-con, and he goes to Paradise Peak, but he finds honest work along with a sense of belonging, and so he's trying to rehabilitate a ranch alongside the very people his transgressions hurt the most. There's a chance to create a haven for wildfire refugees, and so he tries to do some good to earn some respect. He doesn't count on his feelings for his boss's beautiful niece, so she, I guess, our love interest, Hannah, has a bleak past as well. I'm sure they fall for each other, so that's really all I know about this. I like to enter romance giveaways because I do enjoy romance, and it's fun to just try a whole bunch of different authors. The next two, I think, are just generally fiction. I think one of them may have a sci-fi bend to them. The first one I'll talk about is What a Happy Family by Saumya Dave. So this takes place in Atlanta. We've got this family, which is the quintessential Indian American family. decades ago, I guess, I think the parents immigrated to America, and the mom became a pillar of the local Indian community, and the father became a successful psychiatrist. Their eldest daughter is following in the footsteps of her dad and is happily married. The middle child is about to become engaged. And then their son, well, he's a son, and what could be better than that? But we have some sort of family scandal. The mom's oldest friendship starts to unravel, and she finds herself an outsider in the community she helped build. The oldest daughter discovers that her perfect marriage isn't as solid as she thought, and the middle child faces a series of rejections that send her into a downward spiral. So we've got public humiliation, gossiping aunties, and self-doubt, and they have to rely on each other, like they've never done before. So just seems interesting. It's, I think, a little bit different from what I usually read. So the other book that I, don't know, I think this is maybe... We do have these sci-fi elements, obviously, moving back in time, but I guess I did not say the name here, but this is She Wouldn't Change a Thing by Sarah Adlakha. Exploring, time traveling and just consequences of your actions when you do that, that can be pretty interesting. So I'm curious to see how this goes. So the next book I have is... I can't remember if this is adult fantasy kind of leaning into horror or what exactly, but that's Sorrowland by River Solomon. So let's see here. We have Vern, who is 7 months pregnant and desperate to leave the strict religious compound where she was raised. She flees for the shelter of the woods and gives birth to twins and wants to raise them far from the influence of the outside world. But even in the forest, she's hunted. She's forced to fight back against the community that refuses to let her go and unleashes incredible brutality far beyond what a person should be capable of. So she's trying to understand her metamorphosis and has to face the past and the future outside the woods. Finding the truth will mean uncovering not only the secrets of the compound she fled, but also the violent history of America that produced it. Okay, so yeah, it says it's a genre-bending work of gothic fiction. This one has gotten kind of mixed reviews from my booktube friends. I know people who have really loved it, and I also know people who it really hasn't worked for. So I'm curious to see for myself how this goes. I think based on this cover, there's some sort of plant or fungus. I don't know if that's actually right, but that would be kind of cool, though. So then we have more, thrillers and mystery. The first book I'll talk about here is The First Day of Spring by Nancy Tucker. This is actually a finished edition, which was cool. Also, I really like the cobalt blue against the black. That's always a really interesting color combination to me, so that's an aside. But, okay, so we have Chrissy, who has just killed a boy when she was 8. The feeling made her belly fizz like soda pop. Her playmates are tearful and their mother's terrified, but Chrissy is, all in for this, and she has a feeling of power that she never gets at home, where food is scarce and attention is scarcer. So then 20 years later, she's living in hiding under a changed name, doing all she can to forget who she used to be, but the past is trying to catch up with her and threatening to take away the one thing she cares about, which is her 5-year-old daughter, Molly. So that sounds kind of crazy, actually. I've never read anything by this author, but it seems like we're going to have certainly a complex protagonist. Even just looking at the back, it kind of mentions that it's going to be a really tense thriller, and that we've got confused psychology of a child driven to violence, but also a thoughtful consideration of the redemptive power of love and friendship. So that seems really intriguing, actually. The next book I'll talk about is Sleepless by Romy Hausmann. So this is the same author as of Dear Child. I own that book, but I have not read it yet. But yeah, so this is another adult thriller. Nadia was convicted of a crime when she was just a child, so she's been out of jail for a few years. She's mostly content with her simple life, a decent job, and one best friend, Laura. But lately, Laura has been distant, and suddenly she shows up shaking and pale. She tells Nadia that she killed someone and is afraid to tell her volatile husband and needs Nadia's help to hide the evidence. So Nadia can't refuse, and they go to a remote house out in the woods to bury a body, but their plan quickly falls apart. Nadia is trapped, a pawn in a bizarre game in which her troubled past could be her salvation or her downfall. Seems like this one's also going to be a dark thriller, helping your best friend bury a body, and then who knows what happens. So that sounds like fun. I'm definitely excited for this one. It looks like it comes out in October. The last of the books that I've won in giveaways, at least that I have so far, is Lightning Strike by William Kent Krueger. So this, I think, is a prequel to a mystery series. I don't know. So, yes, we are in Minnesota. So we've got Aurora, which is a small town. It looks like we're in the summer of 1963, and we follow Cork O'Connor, who is 12, and I'm assuming he's our main character for the rest of this mystery series. He stumbles upon the body of a man he revered hanging from a tree in an abandoned logging camp, and it's the first in a series of events that will cause him to question everything he took for granted about his hometown, family, and himself. So his father is the sheriff of this small town, and it's his job to confirm that this guy's death was by suicide, as all the evidence suggests, but it looks like Cork starts to investigate on his own, and the father and son will face the ultimate test of choosing between what their heads tell them is true and what their hearts know is right. So Yeah, I've never read anything in this series before. This seems like a nice one to kind of get into since it's a prequel, but, you know, if I do enjoy it, then I've got like an entire series to catch up on. It looks like this comes out in August. So then we get into the books that I have bought for myself. We'll begin with the romance books because they're right next to me and that's convenient. The first book I'll talk about is The Secret Bridesmaid by Katy Birchall. So we have Sophie, who is a brilliant bridesmaid. So brilliant, in fact, that she's made it her full-time job. So she's a professional bridesmaid and is hired by London brides to be their right-hand woman, posing as a friend, but working behind the scenes to help plan the wedding and ensure that everything goes smoothly. So she's hired by Lady Victoria Swan, who is a former model and it girl of 1970s London, for the society wedding of the year, and so she's given the chance to prove just how talented she is. But it's not ideal that the bride, who is Lady Victoria's daughter, is an absolute diva and determined to make Sophie's life a nightmare. It's also a bit inconvenient that Sophie finds herself drawn to Cordelia's posh older brother, who is absolutely off limits. But we've got a rival society wedding for at the same day, so things get complicated. I had just happened to find this when I was looking for fun, like, summer romances to read. It seems to get really good reviews, and it seems funny. I think I had, like, read just a sample of it on Amazon and thought it seemed pretty hilarious. It looks like we have a little bit of mixed media formatting with emails and stuff like that, which I always enjoy. The next romance book I'll talk about is Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne. So we've got Ruthie, who works the front desk at this retirement villa. She has her routine, not much changes until she lays eyes on Teddy, who's the son of this retirement villa's new owner and her new neighbor. So he is tall, tattooed, and has the most magical hair on earth. So I guess he is trying to open a tattoo shop and is trying to save up money. So he's the definition of risky, and Ruthie is dazzled at first sight until he mistakes her for a little old lady. She has the perfect revenge for his insulting first impression. Her most eccentric residents have placed yet another ad seeking a personal assistant. I guess these are some 90-year-old ladies, and not one of their assistants has lasted a week. So she offers up Teddy, which he proves to be the ultimate hire and charms his way through the entire villa and into her heart. I read The Hating Game by Sally Thorne not too long ago and really enjoyed it. I thought it was hilarious and it had a really good enemies to lovers type dynamic, which it seems like we're going to have it again here. So, you know, I have heard less positive things about this and her other book, which is like 99% mine, I think. But, you know, given how much I liked The Hating Game, I've been, like, really curious about trying her other stuff, so hopefully this one will be pretty good. The last of the romance books that I have to talk about is How Sweet It Is by Dylan Newton. So I recently talked about this in my July releases video, but it's basically like we've got romance plus horror. So we have an event planner who is famous for creating the perfect happily ever after moment for her clients' dream weddings. So her best friend has now roped her into planning a best-selling horror writer's book launch extravaganza. This guy, Drake, is tired of the spotlight and tired of his reputation as the Knight of Nightmares. He's really a nice guy, but he's not prepared for Kate, who is a fearless agent of chaos and steel-tipped stilettos. They kind of inspire each other and whatnot. But yeah, I think for me, what kind of drew me to this is like the combination of romance and horror. I feel like that actually kind of reminds me of Kasha from Kasha's Book Cemetery. Like, she reads a lot of horror, but it's hilarious to me. Like, she also does enjoy romance and, you know, other things. This thing's really fun too, so hopefully I enjoy it. And, you know, Kasha, if you're watching this, perhaps you will enjoy this as well. So now we have two graphic novels. The first one I'll talk about here is this House of X, Powers of X combination, and this is written in part by Jonathan Hickman, which is the author of this other one that I have to talk about. So I had been talking to Ivy's brother about East of West, actually, and he had mentioned that that same author, Jonathan Hickman, was involved with this X-Men, I think, kind of reboot. So I was like, that sounds really exciting. I really like X-Men, but had no idea where to start for, you know, getting into the comics. So this seems like a nice place to start. We've got Professor X announcing to the people of Earth that we've got this new mutant nation of Krakoa, which is a safe haven for all mutants with its own rules, own language, and in return for international recognition, he will offer humanity great scientific advancements based on, I guess, the unique flora of this island. But the time for coexistence is over. The old dream is dead, and now it's time for a new one. And the impact of Xavier's actions will be felt 100, even 1,000 years from now. So yeah, I mean, presumably we've got our usual suspects here, but certainly we have Wolverine down here. Then finally, you know, the other, like the graphic novels I have is East of West, The Apocalypse, Year 3. Again, this is written by Jonathan Hickman. So this is like a weird, I don't even know, like sci-fi, Weird West apocalyptic story. This is like the hardest one to describe. It was hard to summarize, but basically we have like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. 3 of them have been reborn. The 4th is kind of doing his own thing, and we've got like this weird futuristic setting where like America has been kind of broken up into different parts, and I don't even know, they're all kind of at war right now. So that was a terrible description, but this, I think, is the last 3 volumes of East of West, and I've definitely enjoyed it, even though like it is incredibly bizarre and violent, but it's really intriguing, and I think there's a lot of pretty cool artwork and stuff, so I just want to finish this up. So now we'll get into the mystery thrillers that I have. I'll talk about a YA book first. So that's Ace of Spades by Faridah Abike-Iyimide. So this I've heard really great things about in general. I think it's kind of like a board. Yeah, okay. We have private academy students who are selected to be part of the elite school's senior prefects. And it looks like their year is off to an amazing start. Someone who goes by Aces begins sending anonymous text messages to reveal secrets about the 2 of them that turn their lives upside down and threaten every aspect of their carefully planned futures. As Aces shows no signs of stopping, what seems like a sick prank quickly turns into a dangerous game with all the cards stacked against them. Can they stop Aces before things become incredibly deadly? So that seems really exciting. I liked that it had this sort of private school type setting. That always seems to work really well in thrillers, I think. So this is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, which I think has like an extra something or another at the end. I don't know if it's like a bonus chapter or something like that. Who knows? But I think I had picked it up half on sale for half off. I think that was like around Amazon Prime Day. Barnes & Noble is like, trying to compete. So I was like, yes, I really want to read this book. And also half off is really great for a brand new hardcover. So I'm really excited about this one. So the rest of the mystery thrillers are all adult. The first one I have to talk about is Every Step She Takes by Kelley Armstrong. So this is a standalone thriller. This came out last year, I think, and I just haven't gotten a copy of it yet. I think it has lower reviews in general, but that's fine. So Genevieve has secrets that no one knows. In Rome, she can be whoever she wants to be. Her neighbors see her as a local and they leave her alone, which is exactly what she wants. But one morning after getting groceries, she returns to her apartment. She climbs to the very top of the staircase, the steps narrowing the higher she goes, and when she gets to her door, she puts down her bags and pushes the key into the lock, and the door swings open. She should leave, call the police, but she doesn't. Instead, she goes in. The apartment is empty and exactly as she left it, except for the box on her kitchen table, which was not there this morning. That's addressed to Lucy Callahan, which is a name she hasn't used in 10 years. So I don't know. No idea what is going on here. Obviously, we have somebody changing their name and fleeing from something. I really like Kelley Armstrong, so I'm pretty optimistic I'll enjoy this. So the next book I have is The Stranger Behind You by Carol Goodman. This is one of the 2 books that was in the July Unplugged book box. So I've read a couple of books by Carol Goodman before and have really enjoyed them overall, I think. Some of them are better than others, certainly. So here we've got a journalist who has written a scathing article exposing a notorious newspaper tycoon as a sexual predator. But the night it goes live, she's brutally attacked and I guess has a concussion, is traumatized. So she moves to a highly secure apartment building in Manhattan called the Refuge, which was at one time some sort of Magdalene laundry. But we've got some cryptic incidents that are happening. So we've got a 96-year-old neighbor. And in 1941, she witnessed a mysterious murder that sent her into hiding here and hasn't come out since. So Joan sees striking similarities to her own past, I guess. And then we also have Melissa, who is newly widowed and vengeful, who has burning questions about her husband's recent death. She discovers a suspicious paper trail that he left behind and realizes how little she knew about her marriage. But it seems like Joan may be the one who has the answers. I feel like I hadn't really heard about this for whatever reason. It just recently came out, I think. This seems like a really interesting and relevant premise, I guess. We've got, exploring sexual harassment and women joining together to overcome traumas. And finally, the other thriller book I have is For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. So this takes place at a private school. So we've got Teddy, who won Teacher of the Year, and he says his wife couldn't be more proud, though no one has seen her in a while. So he really can't be bothered with a few mysterious deaths on campus that are looking more and more like murder, or the student digging a little too deep into his personal life. His main focus is on pushing these kids to their full academic potential. All he wants is for his colleagues and these meddlesome parents to stay out of his way. If not, well, they'll get what they deserve. It's really too bad that sometimes excellence can come at such a high cost. So yeah, I like really wanted to get this. I have enjoyed both of Samantha Downing's previous 2 books. Like, she does a really good job writing complex characters who you don't really root for, but at the same time, like, you don't want to root for them because they're awful people, but like at the same time you still kind of find yourself doing that. So I think she's done a good job of writing like really crazy, twisted scenarios, and I feel like I just want to keep reading what she's, what she's writing. So then I have a couple of sci-fi-ish ones. This one I'm not entirely sure if this is sci-fi. Like, I think this is a multi-genre type book, but this is Neverworld Awake by Marisha Pessl. I actually don't know how to pronounce that. I actually picked this up as a buy one, get one half off with another book that I'll show you momentarily. So it's been a year since graduation, and Beatrice has mixed feelings about joining her friends at a weekend reunion. She's right to be worried. After a night out, they narrowly avoid a collision with a car on a deserted road, or so they believe. Back at the mansion where they're staying, a mysterious man knocks on the door during a raging storm. He tells them that they must make a choice. One of them will live, and the rest will die, and the decision must be unanimous. And then we've got time backbending, so they're forced to repeat that day so many times that they lose count. And each time they do that, events twist and fears come alive in horrifying ways. This nightmare, this nothingness, this is the Neverworld Awake. To escape, they have to vote, but how do you choose who to kill, and then how do you live with yourself? This was one that I was, like, not really sure about, but I was looking for another book to pick up as, this buy one, get one half off deal, so this is one of the other ones that they had that seems the most interesting to me, and it looks like some of my friends have enjoyed it overall. And then the other sci-fi book is The Darkness Outside Us by Eliot Schrefer, so this is YA sci-fi, but so we've got 2 boys alone in space. After the first settler on Titan trips her distress signal, neither remaining country on Earth can afford to scramble a rescue on its own, so 2 sworn enemies are installed in the same spaceships. Ambrose wakes up with no memory of the launch, and I guess evidence is indicating that strangers have been on board. The ship's operating system is voiced by his mom, and his handsome brooding shipmate has barricaded himself away. The settler in question is his own sister, so he's like desperate to rescue her. So they're going to have to work together and learn to trust each other, especially once they discover that they're up against larger forces than they had ever considered. Love may be the only way to survive. So that seems really interesting. I've heard pretty good things about it, and I think what drew me to this in particular was like seeing reviews that had mentioned kind of like a little bit of a survivalist type story. So I really like sci-fi thrillers and just generally like sci-fi horror. I don't think this is horror, but it like involving survival elements, I think, is one way to make it really tense and exciting. So I'm really hopeful that this will be enjoyable. So then we have a few urban fantasy books to get through. I'll talk about a YA one first, which is Blood Like Magic by Lizelle Stanbury. So this came out fairly recently as well. This takes place in Canada, I believe. So we've got years after waiting for her calling, which is a trial that every witch must pass in order to come into their powers. Voya, our main character, didn't expect to fail this, but her ancestor gives her an unprecedented second chance to complete this and agrees, but then is horrified to find that her task is to kill her first love, and this time failure means that every witch in her family will be stripped of their magic. So she's going to save their magic no matter what, but she's never fallen in love, so first she has to find the perfect guy, and fast. So there's some sort of genetic matchmaking program that has just recently hit the market, so she's going to try to, join it, fall in love, and complete her task before the deadline. The guy she's paired with just wants nothing to do with her. I feel like I've seen pretty good things about this, and I'm always on the lookout for more urban fantasy, so this sounded fun. It sounds like a darker premise, certainly with, I think there's blood magic from what I remember, and also, I think it's hilarious that, she's gonna have to sacrifice her first love, but, that means she has to find him first. Then we have adult urban fantasy, and the first one I'll talk about here is $1 Million Demon by Kim Harrison. I guess we're going with a lot of, purpley pink covers today, but yeah, so this is the latest installment of the Hollow series, which I've been reading for a while and really enjoy. So this takes place in Cincinnati, and, we've got witches, demons, elves. Here, we've got a new master vampire of Cincinnati who has arrived and wants Rachel out. And this master vampire is threatening her allies, causing chaos, and forcing Rachel out of her current quarters. So basically, she wants to eliminate Rachel to consolidate her own power. But Rachel may have to step into a new role, and if she doesn't, the city will tear itself apart, taking her and all those who stand beside her with it. I'm very excited about this one. I've really enjoyed the Hollow series in general. I think there's a lot of, I really like just the different, demon, vampire, elf dynamic. I think, it had concluded, and then the book before this one was a return to the Hollows, and I think it had some flaws to it, but I was just really excited to return to that world that I know and love. So I'm definitely hopeful that we'll see some of our, like old favorites who weren't as present in the previous book. And the last of the urban fantasy books I have is Cursed Luck, also by Kelley Armstrong. We have Kennedy, who comes from a long line of curse weavers. And for centuries, her family has plied their trade in unstable Massachusetts, which is a small town that welcomes paranormal practitioners. And she has just recently struck out on her own to open an antique shop in Boston where her specialty is uncursing and reselling hexed objects. Then we have Aiden, who walks into her life with an offer she should refuse. He's the scion of a wealthy family of luck workers, and he wants to get his hands on the most famous cursed object, but he's not the only one after this necklace. And he's not the only one looking for a curse weaver to fix it. So her sisters are kidnapped, and she finds herself plunged into the underbelly of the magical world where even Aiden is in over his head. So, again, really like Kelley Armstrong. I think she has some really fun urban fantasy books, so this is one that I've been wanting to read, and it seems like it's the start of a new series, which I'm really excited about. Last but not least, we've got some fantasy, so we'll start with the adult fantasy first, and the first one we'll talk about is The Desert Toward Asunder by Bradley P. Beaulieu. So this is the last book, sadly, in the Song of the Shattered Sand series, which is like, I don't know, desert fantasy. But here we've got, essentially like, back in ye olden days of the first book, our main character Shada was trying to kill the 12 kings in Sherakai, and now we're dealing with like a lot of gods and a lot of like political schemes and stuff. So we've got a deposed queen who's trying to raise the buried elder god. We've got some characters sailing for their ancestral home to bring a traitor to justice, and discover that the tribes have united under this traitor's banner, so they're all trying to like annihilate Sherakai. But then we also have some blood mages and a strange gateway between worlds, and everybody is going to have to kind of band together, I think, to stop this elder god. So I'm really excited to finish this series. I've very much enjoyed it. I think I've given all the books 5 stars. So yeah, I mean, as the series has gone on, it's really expanded in scope, and I just can't wait to see how it ends. So like, it is a lot shorter than I was anticipating, which makes me a little nervous. Hopefully it wraps up in a nice way. The next book I have is Capture the Crown by Jennifer Eastep. So this was the other book that came in the July Unplugged book box. So this is set in the same world as the Crown of Shards series, and I've really enjoyed that series. So super excited to return to that world. We are following a new heroine, and she is a spy. So yeah, Gemma is a pampered princess who has this reputation as being, really pampered and just interested in frivolous things, but this is just a crafted persona. So she's trying to discover who is stealing Tearstone from one of the royal mines, and encounters this prince who is her mortal enemy. And basically she ends up having to reluctantly join forces with him, and we also have a gargoyle coming to her aid. So we've got, of course, dangerous attractions sparking between them, and we've got this murderous family of this prince. This is a really interesting world with some fun types of magic, and I like the creatures, so, I'm excited about this gargoyle in particular. And the last of the adult fantasy books is The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. So this came in the June Unplugged book box. I've read Tasha Suri's other books and have really loved them, so I'm excited to try this one out. So we've got a princess who's trapped by her brother within the crumbling walls of an ancient temple. She's dreaming of vengeance. We've got a maidservant who is forced to disavow her birthright and her power because of her past, so she dreams of freedom. So we've got a world beset by wild magic and a turbulent uprising, and their destinies will become irrevocably tangled, and together they will set an empire ablaze. So this is a large book. It's larger than I anticipated, but I'm excited for that. Like I said, I really liked Tasha Suri's other books. I think she does a good job. Like, I seem to remember those had a really nice slow burn romances. I'm hoping that we have a nice slow burn romance here. It seems like we have some interesting magic as well, and some political schemes certainly. So I just really can't wait to dive into this one. Finally, we'll end with some YA fantasy. The first one I'll talk about is Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. This is like a retelling of some like fairy tale stuff, and also some like myths and legends, I think. But I think it's also set in the same world as Spin the Dawn, so I'm really excited for that. But I think this takes place like a long, long time ago. Anyway, so we have the princess who has a secret. She has forbidden magic, and normally she controls it well, but on the day of her betrothal ceremony, she loses control, and this seems good because it is, forestalling the wedding she never wanted, but it also catches the attention of her stepmother, who's a sorceress on her own right, and she banishes our princess and turns her brothers into cranes. She warns Shiori that she must speak of it to no one, because with every word that escapes her lips, one of her brothers will die. So She's trying to find her brothers and uncovers a dark conspiracy to seize the throne, and only she can set the kingdom to rights, but she has to put her trust in a paper bird, a mercurial dragon, and the very boy she fought so hard not to marry, and she has to embrace her magic as well. So this is a really gorgeous cover. This is beautiful in person. I really enjoyed the Spin the Dawn duology, whatever the series name is actually called. I think it had some cool magic. I liked the romance that we got, and some, there were some really fun ideas. So I definitely enjoy her writing, and I'm excited. I, again, love any sort of fairy tale retelling, or just retellings in general, and also just incorporating myths and legends. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to love this. The next book I have to talk about is All the Tides of Fate by Adlakha Grace. So this is the sequel to All the Stars and Teeth, which I read last year, I think, and really enjoyed. We do kind of have like this pirate nautical type theme. There were it was an island setting, I think, and each island had a specific type of magic, which was an interesting idea. So here we've got also this curse. It looks like the islands are in turmoil, and the people are questioning our main character's authority, and she can't allow anyone to see her weaknesses. A lot of these things are spoilery, so I'm like, well, what can I tell you? She's embarking on a quest for a mythical artifact that can fix everything, but it comes at a terrible cost. So she's trying to balance her loyalty to her people, her crew, and the desires of her heart, and soon discovers, that the power to rule may destroy her. So I think this is just a duology. Like I said, I really liked the first one, and I definitely want to see how this story concludes. I like that we do have this island setting and some, fun, I think there was blood magic and obviously curses and whatnot, which is fun. I think we also had some sea creatures that were interesting. It's been a while since I read the first one. But the next book I have is The Cruelest Mercy by Natalie May. So this is the sequel to The Kind Your Poison, which, again, I think I also read last year. And that was interesting. It was like a competition for the crown, but our main character kind of gets swept up. She is not royal herself, but she gets swept up in this race pitting the royal heirs against each other, and lots of crazy things ended up happening. So here, she's kind of sworn off adventures. So she's, trying to just figure out what the future holds, but it looks like somebody returns claiming that they are the true winner and the rightful heir, and bears the god's mark as proof, but even more surprising, he's not the only one. Somehow, our main character also possesses the same mark, giving her equal rights to the throne. She and her allies have to race against the clock to find a way to stop this heir, because once he's crowned, there's no telling what horrors he'll unleash to win the war. And, it's like, to stop a villain, is she willing to become one herself? I thought the first one was a really fun adventure. I liked this idea of, this competition element, and all. There were 3 different heirs, and they all had, pros and cons. But I really liked our main character. I think there were some fun, humorous moments, and I thought she was pretty entertaining. And finally, the last book I'll talk about today is This Poison Heart by Caitlin Barron. So this is the book that I was like, I wanted to get as the buy one, get one half off deal, because this just came out, and I have, several friends who have read it recently and loved it, and I was like, okay, that seems awesome. So this, I think, is some sort of retelling of sorts, but also, plant magic. So, yeah, okay, Briseis has a gift. With a single touch, she can grow plants from tiny seeds to rich blooms, but when her aunt dies and wills her a dilapidated estate in rural New York, she and her parents hope that, surrounded by plants and flowers, she will finally learn to control her gift. But their new home is sinister in ways they never expected. It comes with a mysterious set of instructions, a walled garden filled with the deadliest botanicals in the world, and generations of secrets. There's more to her sudden inheritance than she could have imagined, and she is determined to uncover it. So, that sounds really exciting. I guess I should have classified this as urban fantasy, but here we are. I also like that we have plant magic. That's really cool. That's not something I see as often. And this is a really beautiful cover. So I am super hopeful that I'm going to enjoy this. I'm assuming that we also have some poison of sorts. I don't know if we have poisonous plants or what, but that'll be fun to find out. With that, those are all the books that I have to talk to you about today. So let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books or think you might pick them up. And for your question of the day, we'll go something not book related, but have you been watching the Olympics? Because I sure have. So my next wrap up or weekly review or whatever will probably be kind of sparse. I don't think I've finished a book this week. But yeah, I get really into the Olympics. So hopefully everybody's, if you're watching them, hopefully you're enjoying that. But anyway, I do have a Discord channel, and if you want to join that, the link's in the description below. I hope you're all having an excellent day and are reading something awesome. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up, as that would certainly help me out. But with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up here and see you in the next one.